Hey Bat fans, Luke here, back with our next installment of Batmas 2020, and today we're going to take a look at the trade Batman Monsters. This trade is actually a collection of three stories from the pages of Legends of the Dark Knight, and those were from issues 71 to 73, 83, 84, and 89. And these are from stories. The first one is from James Robinson. The second story is from Warren Ellis. And the third story is from Alan Grant. So you have a collection of stories for some pretty prominent bat scribes from over the years. And Legends of the Dark Knight is, I've said it actually a couple times, in that they are stories from early on in Batman's career. And typically they try to keep it around the first, second, or so in the career. But this one is a little tough to say where exactly to kind of put this. If you're having your timeline, I'm kind of putting this between, a little bit after Terror / Dark Legends and before Blink and like Fortunate Son, even into before Night Cries for a couple of reasons. First off, the first story, Batman says that he pretty much got about 18 months into his career in this. But it's also kind of weird because the third story actually references him. He says, "I have about 3 weeks of this Batman, job under my utility belt." So it's kind of tough to say, but I'm gonna put it like I said, maybe right after Dark Legends, before Blink, Fortunate Son, and definitely Night Cries. For one thing is for sure, Gordon in this is not Commissioner Gordon. He's Captain Gordon, so you know it's definitely before Night Cries. So you got some wiggle room about where to put it, but I'm kind of going with the 18 months ish kind of reference and tying that back again. Gordon is not Commissioner Gordon yet. Kind of going from there. So this kind of fits into that theme of early on in Batman's career. And that's literally what these three stories are. Is Batman kind of doing his thing, kind of figuring things out, and kind of having some adventures along the way. And the first story, and what I'll do is I'll kind of go through briefly each three of these stories and kind of give thoughts along the way, and then kind of give a comprehensive, we'll say, feedback on this book. And the first one, it's actually a story. It's called Werewolf. It's a three-parter. Again, this is by James Robinson. And basically what has happened is that there has been a string of murders, actually not a string, a couple of murders that occurred in Gotham. And basically one of them is actually a friend of Alfred. And we find out that basically this connects back to London. And basically what happens is Batman travels to London to actually try to figure out these two murders and find out what's happened. Also, one of them actually connects Twain Industries. One of the other victim is actually kind of like a private investigator slash. I don't think it's even kind of maybe part of his legal team. But this connects back to London, and we actually find out that through the Batman's detective work that the person who's actually, when I say person, the perceived thing that's causing the murders that happen in Gotham and it's actually continue on in London is that there's actually a werewolf, and this werewolf is actually in its human form, quote unquote human form, is taking out people that have done this person wrong. This person's been divorced, and through that is pretty much losing everything, and that's basically what it's perceived to be. The cause is that this werewolf is pretty much taking out vengeance for those who have done this person wrong. But through that, we do see a twist in that as well. You actually see kind of like the Gotham equivalent London criminal underworld actually come into this story. And it's a very detective centric story. This is actually, Batman showcasing his detective skills, working the case, kind of working a little bit with the London police department, and it's actually pretty cool to see it. Just kind of like the Gotham setting into kind of London. And there was a game for PlayStation. I want to say back like early 2000s. It was called Nightmare Creatures. It was set in London to kind of go against these werewolves and vampires and things like that. It's kind of had that kind of vibe to it. You do see at the end, all is not as it kind of seems throughout. Is there an actual an actual werewolf? I'm not gonna spoil that, but I will say there becomes a twist on who the person actually is. I'm not gonna spoil it completely because I wanna. There is a clever twist to this. Is that the person that you're thinking who this person is actually is not. And as you kind of read it, you kind of see the gist of what happens as things kind of unfold. Um, and what's going on with the werewolf, I thought that was pretty interesting. But at the same time, I don't know. Kind of, you got to really kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit to kind of get the point. But all in all, I think it wraps up really nicely. And that, again, this is a very detective centric story. And it's good to see this, keeping in mind this is Batman in his early career, kind of figure out the case. The art in this is actually done. I should have mentioned the artist. The art is John Watkis, and I thought the art done really did kind of feel, kind of help kind of portray that kind of gothic-y, not going to say horror to a degree, but it just fit the story, and I thought was really well done. The next story is called Infected. It's a two-parter. This is written by Warren Ellis with art by John McCrae, and this one is basically what it happens. We've got two individuals that we find out they're kind of infected, or well, maybe not infected, might not be the right word, but basically you have some of the elites kind of trying to create these super soldiers with capabilities that really amp up soldiers' abilities. And basically what it is they kind of develop this kind of cancerous protrusions throughout their body, and that become a little bit more impenetrable to attack, but they can really. It's kind of like if I heard of the fight or flight syndrome, you kind of get this in this a little bit. And also, rather than shooting guns, they have these kind of like bones they kind of shoot out with their hands, kind of like Spider-Man with the webs, but think, bone bullets. And one individual actually gets knocked off by himself, actually commits suicide. And what happens is they're supposed to work in pairs, and then throughout the story, what happens if one person goes out, kind of like the we'll call it the infection, kind of really goes to like level 11, but the person is still there. And basically, what happens is that those cancerous protrusions actually go up, and they're kind of like, I forget what they're called, like boils, and kind of like a big whitehead. And basically, what happened is that would actually get to a point it will grow and explode, and like all the gooey stuff that will go out, and then it will affect other people, and you'll get more and more of these super soldiers going out. And the other thing that's kind of cool is that you find out when they actually see there's the one that actually kind of survives to the end. But what they see is kind of distorted, and I like how you actually see this in the stories, that you'll see the pink is what those infected soldiers, what they think they're seeing, but it's not really what is real. So like in this case, this is what they think Gotham's looking like, but in reality, this is literally what it is. So their reality is distorted, which kind of helps explain why they are doing what they're doing. Because in reality, they think they're doing good. They think, but again, this right before the one actually commits suicide. But it actually comes down to crescendo at the end. Batman chasing this person down. There is one thing I do not like in this story, and it's something that I've said before, and many people see before. Anytime you see Batman with a gun, you do begin to feel kind of uneasy. And this is in one case, if I can get to it, where Batman actually uses a gun. In that he's not gonna kill that infected soldier, but he does kind of incapacitate his ability to shoot those stone bullets out of its hand. He actually does use it. That I know, again, this is early on Batman's career. Maybe he hasn't really fully solidified those morals yet, that philosophy, but still, anytime I see it, I do kind of cringe a little bit. The ending was really quick. This was a two issue story. It did wrap up really quick, but the way it ended, I don't know. It basically come back to the reservoir in Gotham, and this person who's got all those boils and stuff growing goes into the water, and basically it's implied that it drowned. Um, I don't know. You would think logically then that the water is contaminated. I don't know. Felt kind of weird. You do see kind of like the elite who's kind of pushing this program along. It's kind of, if you saw the movie Godfather, kind of like the horse in the bed. I don't know if that was their direct reference to that, but this person's about to get their comeuppance, and that's kind of like the sign going into it. So overall, not bad, but it had some flaws here and there. The third story is it's another two-parter, and it's called Clay. This is kind of like an origin story for Clayface, but this is not the Clayface as we know of today. I know that there's been multiple Clayfaces out there, and this one is oh man, I forget Matthew. Oh, what's the guy's name? Oh, totally blanking right now. God, having a total brain fart. This will come back to me as I kind of talk. And this is actually a origin story for Clayface, one of the Clayfaces. But keeping in mind, this is one that literally Batman says that, hey, I've been here for like 3 weeks. So I don't know. Matt Hagen, there it is. I don't know. It's kind of take it for what it is, but this is a origin story for a Matt Hagen version of Clayface, obviously not Basil Carlo as we know him today. But basically, this is an origin story where Hagen is kind of a criminal, and he kind of stumbles across kind of like a Lazarus Pit type of thing, where he actually becomes Clayface. And there is somewhat of a tragedy to this, in that he does kind of have someone he kind of fallen in love with, and there is kind of like a tragic ending to it. What happens between Hagen and his, we'll call, girlfriend, but yeah, it's again not spoiling everything to it, but yeah, it's basically there's some criminals that kind of Hagen kind of screws over along the way, and basically this is like kind of like the slow demise of Matt Hagen Clayface, which is an interesting take to it. Where in the recent run, Basil Carlo kind of like if he kind of uses his form to manipulate the clay for a certain degree for so long, it starts to have effects on him. This is actually kind of like that concept a little bit, where basically he can shape shift, but becomes more and more addicted, to the power that this clay brings. And what's interesting in that is in this story is that it's more with that going on. It's more the backdrop of Batman trying to figure things out. This is again someone that hasn't have everything, all the contingencies in place. There is some self doubt to his abilities that he's got to figure out. And again, the ending kind of wraps up in a way that it made sense, but again, I don't know. Just to me, I kind of prefer the Basil Carlo actor type of approach to Clayface versus the Matt Hagen. But be that as it is, I thought it was a pretty decent story. The art on this one which I should have gave credit to in the beginning if I haven't done so. Oh boy, I'm gonna butcher this one. Kike El Sesenta, whatever. I thought it was really awesome, and the color palette used throughout here just really how fleshed out. I almost wish Kelly Jones did this. This would have been an awesome, even though this is very well done. It would have been cool to see Kelly Jones' take on this. So, but overall, not a bad story. Kind of going all three. I think the best one, the three stories, is the werewolf one. To be honest, followed by the Clayface story, and kind of wrapping it up with the infected. But overall, I mean, none of the stories were bad. They just kind of had, again, the way like the werewolf was kind of explained felt kind of fair enough. The gun that's shown in the infected, and then really the Matt Hagen aspect to Clayface in the third story were things that kind of brought this book down a little bit to me. I thought overall it's a fun read. It's good to look at. It has this classic Batman stories, but it has some flaws here and there, which leads me to give this a score of like 3 out of 5. Would I recommend getting it? Maybe. This one here, about $20. This one out of print. You have to get secondary market. So I don't know. You might be able to get your hands on some of the individual issues, kind of go from there. But I would say don't rush out to get it. For the casual Batman fan, go get some of the more requisite stories. Batman Completionist, absolutely. Filling in, it does have that kind of aspect to it. Kind of gives more context again to the early career Batman and everyone else. Again, if you come across nothing else, it's a fun read. But 3 out of 5, just kind of going there with tethered expectations. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this book right here, Batman Monsters. Hit me in the comments below if you read it. Would love to chat with you on this one. And until next video, take care.